Okay, we are going to start off here with just a little bit of what I've been calling demystification around AI. Just it's helpful to pull back the curtain and get a look at a few things. So this page you're looking at here, this will be technically the only video you have to watch or need to watch really. But if you scroll down here, there's just going to be a few things. This link, I'm going to talk about that in like 30 seconds for you to click with, pause the videos, click with, and interact with. And then these definitions we'll talk about here, but they're there. We'll talk about here in a second, but they're there if you'd like to refer back to them. And then any slides that I reference, I've embedded them here for you, so you can click through those in if you would like to. So notice if you scroll over it, then it switches the slides, and it's crazy annoying. And at the very, very end of our time here, there's a discussion down here, prompt down here at the beginning, at the very, very end, where you'll just have the chance to think about your just your feelings around AI and just get some of those things out there and just process that a little bit. So first and foremost, let's start off around just a little activity that I do with people using something called Quick Draw with Google. So you can open this up in a new tab, or you can click this button right here down below the video, and it'll take you to the exact same place. So it's quickdraw.withgoogle.com. Go ahead and pause the video once I tell you here in just a second, and you can play around with that. This is going to take you here. Notice it's quickdraw.withgoogle.com. And then you're going to click on this Let's Draw portion. Then I just want you to play around with it for a couple of minutes. I think it gives you like 6 turns through there, but just play around with this as many times as you would like, and then come back to Canvas and start the video again, and we'll pick up with that. So I'm going to wait for you to pause the video and stare awkwardly at the camera for like 5 seconds. Okay, hopefully you paused the video, you went and played a Quick Draw, and now you're back. Here is what Quick Draw is. This is an AI. It's a large data set. It's a good example of machine learning. And so when you clicked on Let's Draw here, it gave you a prompt, and then you had to draw that prompt. How am I going to draw an onion? That's definitely an apple. How do you draw an onion? Like this. That's supposed to be layers. Oh, it got onion. That's actually a perfect example. I'm going to stop there because it said, oh, I know it's onion. You tell me that looked like an onion. I don't think so. That's kind of the whole point here. It makes you ask, how did it know that? And if you just refresh your page, you come back here to this front screen, this front section here. And instead of clicking on Let's Draw, you click on this yellow text. That's the world's largest doodling data set. This actually gives you a look at every single prompt you could be asked to draw here. And then if you hover over it, so let's say chair. Chair is relatively simple. These are all the different chairs that people have drawn. And so this is data being put into this machine at 203,000 data points here. And then if you hover over them, more importantly, it actually shows you the process they took to draw. So you can see if you hover over these, I have kind of yet to find, all 3 of these people drew the back to the chair first. That person drew the seat. That person drew the legs, back, seat, right? And so what this is doing is it's analyzing patterns. So the reason that can guess my very, very terribly drawn onion is because it's not actually looking for the picture as a whole. It's looking at the pattern. It's looking at what I've drawn for sure, but then it's comparing that to the hundreds of thousands of other onions that people have drawn. And the more data that's put in there, the more knowledgeable it gets, and the better the guesses will be, and the faster it can be there. So that is just a very, very rudimentary example of machine learning and AI. And so as we're talking about AI, ChatGPT being the big one, but that's generative AI, large language models. We'll talk about that here in just a second. It's important to understand that Quick Draw with Google has been around since I've been in the classroom, which was around 7 years ago. It was around before I was in the classroom. It's been around for a long time. We use AI all the time. And so here's this definition here, which I'm not going to read to you, but because you can read that off yourself. But you could stop and think for a second about all the different places that we interact with AI on a daily basis before ChatGPT or generative AI. The machine learning is an example of what you just saw, which is this large data set, and then it learns, quote unquote, based off of those massive amounts of data. And then the real game changer for us here in 2021, was that when this happened? Was this large language model, or generative AI. So all of these things are about inputs, and then ChatGPT and Gemini and Copilot and Claude, these large language models, what really made them stand out is that they were generative. They are creating something. And so this large language model, it's capable of creating vast amounts of text or images at this point, based off of these huge data sets. I didn't put it in the slideshow, but I could go find it. The image, the visual representation of the amount of data that ChatGPT has been trained on is unbelievable, is absolutely astronomical. So the point here being, AI has been around for a while, but really this transformational portion of it is this large language and generative AI, this generative AI that's in front of us here today. So I like to put this up in front of people because it's easy once you see what generative AI can do, what ChatGPT can do, which is the first thing that we're going to play around with here, to be like, oh my gosh, this is insane, this is game changing. But the more you play around with it, the more you start to find its limitations. And so I like to have this in mind, this hype cycle here. And I've circled generative AI. It's not the highest quality picture, so a little tough to see there, but I've circled generative AI here, and notice it's just kind of cresting this peak of inflated expectations. If this is going to be your first time playing around with ChatGPT, then you're going to be like, holy cow, this thing is insane once you get used to a little bit. But the more that you use it, again, the more you're going to find those limitations. Now, the wrinkle that's thrown into all of this is they're constantly updating. When I first made this version of this course, which was run for Cascade back in January, February, you had to pay for ChatGPT. There were these limitations on it. Couldn't do certain. There was a free version of it, but much more limiting. In June, they released this advanced model for everybody. You can upload all these different things. I just found out it's August 1st, so I just found out like 2 days ago making a video. As of July, there's apparently no more inquiry limits on it, meaning you used to like time out if you it was like 30 inquiries or 30 prompts into ChatGPT within an hour or something used to be like timed out. They've removed that limitation, so these things are getting more and more accessible. And they've in the coming weeks here, they're releasing all of these other features and these things that are just bigger and better and more advanced and more powerful. So this kind of keeps getting pushed back a little bit, but we do find these limitations here, which is important to remember, because something I'm going to talk about after we're done here is the importance of keeping humans at the center of all of this AI talk. So one thing I do like to show people also is this video from Steve Jobs. So I am going to take myself off the screen. Actually, no, I'm not, because I realized I started making this video and I didn't share my computer sound. So what I'm going to ask you to do is pause this video and come down here and click on this and watch this video from Steve Jobs. Minute long, and you're going to do just a little bit of reflection on that, like pick my video back up, and then I'll give you just a little bit of instruction on the discussion prompt and another lens to think about this. You'll respond to the discussion prompt and move on to the next page. Okay, if you're able to go watch that video, you just heard Steve Jobs talk about man's ability as a tool maker. And that's something that I really want us thinking about as you go through the remainder of this course, is AI is just a tool. This cannot and should not ever replace high-quality instruction or face-to-face interactions with students. Those are the bread and butter of what we do as teachers, and AI cannot and should not, will not ever replace that. So if you find yourself kind of going down that road, I just want you thinking critically about using AI as a tool. The other thing that I talk to teachers a lot about that you may or may not be familiar with is the SAMR model. So SAMR is an acronym: substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition. You can see the definitions there on the screen, but really it's a framework for thinking of how we're using technology in the classroom. Are we using it to do something the exact same thing, just now we're on a computer, so as opposed to handwriting essays, now we're typing essays? Or are we using it to redefine and transform our learning to get a deeper understanding of our topic. So instead of handwriting an essay, we are researching, planning, preparing, creating, producing a podcast episode or a YouTube series or something, right? Something you can't do without technology, but transforms that learning in a meaningful way. So all of that being said, I've talked for a long time. This video is way longer than I meant it to be. I want you to think about this prompt down here at the bottom, your initial feelings about AI in education. There's this new feature in Canvas where you can choose to remain anonymous on a post if I've set it up that way. So this post I have set so that when you reply, you'll have the option to show your name in your profile picture, but you don't have to. So feel free to remain anonymous or show your name and your face on there, totally up to you. But once you've responded to this discussion prompt, go ahead and click next and move on to the next page.